Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sit Down on the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown, and with me is somebody I've been chasing for a while. I completely respect the efforts he putting in, spending his own money trying to help college sports, and I really respect and appreciate all the work that he does. That would be Cody Campbell, who is currently the CEO of Double Eagle Energy, and where I think is more important job, chairman of the board of Texas Tech University. How are we doing today, Cody?
Great, doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I know your time is precious, so I won't go with a lot of fluff. I just want everybody to know that I chased Cody for a while, and so this is something I'm just tickled pink that I'm able to do this. So a quick history, sorry, very short history on Cody's experience. He played for Texas Tech from 2000 2004. He played for one of my favorite coaches ever. That would be Mike Leach. His first recruiting year, actually. But something that he's become more of an activist for is for college football, for that matter, college sports in general, and legislation and the protection of what we all love and are passionate about college sports. Just to get started, before we go into Texas Tech, BYU, and all those things, how did you decide to even get into the sports political game? Because honestly, I mean, being a friend of President Trump and all these things, you knew you were putting yourself out there.
Sure, yeah, I think fundamentally, I wanted to get involved because college sports changed my life and provided me with a tremendous amount of opportunity and my friends and family and folks I'm close to did the same for. 60% of American CEOs have a college sports background, so it's an incredible development tool for our country. It obviously supports our entire Olympic pipeline, does incredible things for women. 94% of women in C-suite roles in companies in the United States have a sports background. So it's college sports are important to our country and to the communities that these schools are in. As you know, it's the cornerstone of the culture and the economy and
Right.
everything else. And so, we need to make sure that we protect them. So I'm passionate about it. And I have been very fortunate in my life and, feel an obligation to give back in any way I can. And so I saw this as an opportunity for me to give back. And people look at philanthropy in different ways, but this is one of the things I'm trying to do just to help and help other people. I became very knowledgeable about all the legalities and rulings and ins and outs of everything that's happened over the last 4 years and the dramatic changes and the chaos that has been created in college sports through my position on the board at Texas Tech and then my involvement with our NIL collective there. I started our NIL collective, so I really was, had a deep understanding of what was going on, had a relationship with the incoming Trump administration, and so I saw an opportunity to go in and potentially help to shape good legislation that will actually fix the problems and preserve this system that we have, for another 100 years. And so that was the goal going in, and continue to work on it every day, and I think we're making good progress.
So, just continuing on this vein, I'm sure as a former player, you support paying players. NIL has been a wonderful tool. At BYU, we've certainly taken advantage of those opportunities, unlike maybe a lot of other public schools cannot. Um, do you see employees the players being employees at some point, like 1099 contractors, or you're absolutely against any sort of employment support for the players directly?
So yeah, so I absolutely do support the players being paid, and I support the players being taken care of. I mean, I think that we've gotten ourselves in this situation because the NCAA was slow to respond, like painfully slow to respond, decades behind in terms of just uh, uh, being aware of the changes that were happening in college sports,
Right.
and things just got fundamentally unfair to the athletes, right? I mean, the NCAA became this organization, all that it did was just police and punish student athletes, right? And you can look at that Michigan sign stealing case as an example. Like that thing just finally got resolved.
2 years later.
And
Yeah.
yeah, 2 years later, and every coach and everything that was involved with it left. The university gets punished. Pretty much every action that occurs from the NCAA, the student athlete gets punished. Nothing really happens to the people who are making money. It's the
Right.
kid that's essentially, when I was playing, you kind of almost had to take a vow of poverty in order to play college sports, and it's just unfair. So it finally got to the point where it was so unfair that they had to be something had to be done, and the courts recognized that unfairness, and so the NCAA again, mismanaged the situation from a legal strategy standpoint. Tried all these cases and lost 18 of them in a row or something.
Right.
And so now they have no ability to enforce any rules at all. And they've been completely neutered, and so there's no body that can make any rules. And we all know that in sports there need to be rules and there needs to be structure, and we lose a lot of the benefits the athletes get if they can just transfer all the time, and that sort of takes away what's special about college sports. And so there need to be limitations, and there need to be it needs to be fair, but at the same time I do support the athletes being paid. However, I do think that it's very important to preserve the status and the concept of the student athlete, because ultimately the education that these men and women receive is the most important part of what they're getting from this experience, right?
Right.
A very, very small percentage of them are getting big NIL deals. That's like 1 or 2% that are
Yeah.
significant. And even at those, it's not enough money to sustain them for the rest of their lives. They still need to have an education, be able to get a job when they get out. And then an even smaller percentage of them end up going pro. And again, there's a long life after football. I've played in the NFL for a little while, and I can tell you, you better have a plan for what you're going to do afterward, because the NFL stands for not for long.
Right.
So it's so I think that it's extremely important that we don't lose sight of just the importance of the student athlete, and recognize that those that are getting paid a lot are a very, very small percentage. And there would be a lot of disadvantages that would happen. A lot of bad things that would happen to athletes if they became employees. Just for instance, they would have to start paying taxes on the value of their scholarships and benefits that they receive from the university. And again, the vast majority of them are not making big NIL deals, and so they would have to pay taxes on the value of their scholarship, and that would be pretty tough on a lot of them. So I think we need to be pretty careful to walk away from the concept of a student athlete, because in fact, I think we should put more emphasis on the educational side than we have in the last few years, and we can't lose sight of the fact that that's the most important thing here.
Absolutely, boy. Everything you say. You and I got acquainted as you started getting involved with Congress and certainly the NIL or the commission that the president was trying to establish. And as that has started, that's been months and months ago. You were outside originally of what was the SCORE Act at the time, and now is the SAFE Act. Those two different bills going through Congress right now. And now, just recently, I think it was even just a quote from a couple days ago, you are now on the record as in favor and supporting those acts, as long as the reconciliation that happens to you align these bills between the legislatures, the Senate and the House. How sure, do you trust that once Congress passes something, that they'll actually follow through on some of the commitments they may have made before it gets passed?
So the SCORE Act, I think, needs to pass, and I support its passing, because something has to be done, and we have to keep the momentum moving. But
Okay.
the SCORE Act needs a lot of work to be done to it. It's not practical in how it's written right now, and honestly, it preserves the status quo, the post-House settlement status quo, which is unsustainable and will cause a lot of women's programs and a lot of Olympic programs to be cut because the money just isn't there. A lot of people don't even know this, but football and to a much smaller extent men's basketball are the only two sports that make money.
Right.
All the other sports are paid for by the money that comes off of football and men's basketball. And so, there was a big budget problem even before the athletic departments started paying directly the student athletes, which that started on July the 1st
Mm-hmm.
of this year. The athletic departments are paying the student athletes $20.5 million a year in total. But even before that, in 2024, the average budget deficit in FBS was $20 million per school per year.
Right.
And so schools are already having to make the decision around, like, are we going to cut our track program because track loses a lot of money, and we need to make sure that we maintain competitiveness in football because football is what makes all the money. Football is what gets us the exposure that we need to help drive
Right.
enrollment and applications, and benefits our brand and benefits alumni engagement and all those kinds of things. And so they have to make sure they're good at football. And so maybe we need to cut our track program because of that. And so again, the impact was already starting to be felt down the line because we have this incredibly massive business problem in college sports, and that they just don't make money. We've professionalized the cost side of it. We're paying the players, we're paying coaches a lot, we're facilities, all that kind of stuff. But then we have this revenue side in the way that we market our media rights that is way outdated and needs to be modernized. And so there is the value there is the commercial opportunity to make enough money to pay for everything if college sports could just market its media rights like the pro sports leagues do. And
Right.
so the best example of this is that the NBA has about half as many viewers as college football does, but the NBA makes twice as much money as college football does. And it's all because of the rights that they have under certain legislation that was written way back in 1961. It's called the Sports Broadcasting Act.
Right.
And so, as we all know, a lot of things have changed since 1961 in the media world, in the sports world, and everything else, and certainly in college sports. And so, really, this law just needs to be updated so that college sports can do what the pro leagues do and market their media rights the way the pro leagues do, so that they can make money. And we've done the work and done the studies, and we have proven that it'll bring about an extra $7 billion into the system.
Wow.
And that $7 billion solves a lot of problems. But then you have to get into, well, how do you split that extra $7 billion up? A lot of
Right.
schools are going to say we deserve more than others. And I think I agree with that. Certain schools do deserve more than others, but we need to make sure that everyone from the G6, all the way up to the top programs in the Big Ten and the SEC are able to sustain themselves and sustain their sports, maintain all their roster spots in the women's sports and the Olympic sports, and have a chance to be competitive. But even with that, the Big Ten and the SEC can make a whole lot more money. But the G6 and and the conferences that make less money, including the Big 12, can make more and keep their programs intact.
Yeah, and I think, by the way, you just hit like 9 of my bullet points. I appreciate you doing that. The amending the 61 Act, there's a lot of, I don't know how else to put it, paranoia, fear that's been misinformation has been put out since you became an activist, that
Mm-hmm.
everybody in the Big Ten, everybody in the SEC, I'm talking about even people that I have a lot of respect for, are paranoid that the federal government now is going to take over college sports. They're assuming by just amending this act, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, just amending the act by itself would mean the federal government is now mandating these changes, And it doesn't sound to me it's quite like that, is it?
Oh no, not at all. And if you don't know me well, and a lot of your listeners don't, but I'm certainly a small government and less government involvement person
I assumed that.
ideologically, and
I
so I,
assumed that. Yeah.
I, I yeah, so I would never be a person that would advocate for the government having more control of anything. And so that's not accurate at all. You know, we can do this where it's done in a orderly way. It's going to take 10 or 12 years for the changes to occur because there are existing media contracts that can't be canceled, won't be canceled. We'll have to let them play out. There are conference agreements that have to be played out. So this is something that will happen gradually, but we basically just have to give the system the ability to act commercially and make good decisions. And we need to set up a governing body that can make commercial decisions because right now the NCAA is incapable of doing that. Just they're a big, old, stodgy, bureaucratic organization.
Right.
We need somebody who can run college sports like a business because it is, and can make decisions quickly and be decisive and be empowered and be capable. And so that's what we're looking to do. Not have the government do it, but stand up a new governing body that will be able to act commercially. And I think a big part of that governing body needs to include the student athletes having a voice at the table because a big problem that we've had up to this point is that the student athletes have not been represented, and really in the NCAA. I mean, they have student athlete
Right.
representatives, but they don't have any governing control. Like we,
Right.
and I think it ought to be people who are former student athletes. The U.S. Olympic Committee has athlete representatives on their board, but they have to be people who have not participated in sport in the last 10 years. And so you get some folks who have more life experience and business experience on there, but also understand the athlete experience and the perspective of the athletes and can represent their needs. And so that's what I envision is an entity that is, kind of co-governed by the conferences, the schools, and the athletes, and also I think that the Olympic movement also ought to have a seat at the table because college sports are their development pipeline. We're the only country in the world that uses college athletic. Well, we're the only country in the world that has serious athletics in higher education, but that system that we've built is our Olympic pipeline, and so without it, we lose. We lose our ability to develop athletes in track and field, and gymnastics and swimming, in volleyball, and all these sports that are important to our country and the pride that we have in our Olympic movement. So, we have to just kind of fundamentally modernize the way we're doing things because things have changed, and change is hard for people and it's threatening to people, and so people get scared of it. But there are also people who are sort of entrenched in it and completely happy with what's going on. The conference commissioners make big salaries and they're important roles, and they're threatened by change to the system and any kind of idea that might threaten their standing. And so, they personally are all opposed to generally what we're talking about doing, even though they don't really even have the specifics. But for the most part, the member institutions of these schools, the actual schools themselves, when you talk to them, they're all in favor of it. I mean, they all have to deal with these budget constraints and these huge holes that they have, and this money that they just don't have. Whereas, the conferences, they get the media distributions first. They cover all their expenses. They pay their salaries, and then they distribute the money to the members of the conferences, and the conferences have to deal with these budgets that are just a complete disaster. Well, that money has to come from somewhere. If you're running a huge deficit, it's coming from tuition dollars. It's coming from in the case of state schools, it's coming from taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
And then some schools are lucky to have donors like BYU and like Texas Tech who can help. But for most of them, it's like coming from the academic side. And,
Yeah.
and so that takes away from something, whether it's scholarships or whether it's a class that can't be taught or research that can't be done or whatever it is. And there's just no reason for that. I mean, there's enough commercial value in college sports, more than enough to cover the cost and make it self-sustaining. And so why wouldn't we do that if we can?
You can't see me now. We're recording this. We're not live or anything, but I'm sitting here putting my hands together, like grateful, thankful for everything you're saying, because you are answering every gray area question that's impossible to answer on Twitter. And you've tried, you have engaged socially. It's how you and I met. And boy, the effort you've put in has been superhuman. And yet at the end of the day, you still lose things in translation. So having player representation, well, without going into necessary details, that's a wonderful one, right? Another one is you said, yeah, we want to amend this act, but it's a 10 or 12-year process. So everybody just slow down a beat. It's not going to happen tomorrow, even if they changed it. Nobody's losing money
Yeah,
they're
we're
already
not we're not
making.
trying to I mean, again, I believe in free markets. I'm a capitalist. I don't want to I don't want to cancel anybody's contracts or,
Right.
take money away from the broadcasters or, hurt the conferences in any way in the current situation. But I think this is a gradual transition that, should have started, 10 or 12 years ago, but we're going to start it now and it's going to take 10 or 12 years. But it sets us on a path toward long-term sustainability, and that's what we're looking for.
I love that so much. Okay, you've hit all the score act, all you've hit NIL, all that stuff. So I can skip all down. I know I've only got you for a limited time, so I'll try to keep this next little bit for just 5 or 7 minutes or something. But uh, BYU Texas Tech, arguably
Yeah.
the biggest game in the new version of the Big 12 conference. Certainly, Tech's first representative in the top 10, if not the top 20 of the first CFP rankings, which just has to tickle you pink. You're hosting a BYU team that is very, very good. I've seen them in person, and boy, Bear Bachmeyer seems to be leaps and bounds over any quarterback freshman, certainly I've ever seen in my life. How are you feeling about this game on Saturday morning?
And I'm so excited about it. And I can speak for all of the Texas Tech community and just saying that we have really enjoyed getting to know the folks at BYU, in your community, from administration to fans to alumni, just a bunch of great people. And we're so excited to host you guys in Lubbock and kind of get to show you what we do there. It'll be super high energy. It'll be a lot of fun. You're right, two very good teams. BYU is tough. They definitely strap their chin straps on tight on defense, and that quarterback is phenomenal. And it'll be a tough, hard fought game, and I'm just so excited to be there and see it. And it's great for college sports. It's going to get we got College Game Day
Right.
there. Then it's a national game on ABC at noon, Eastern time, and so it's going to be a phenomenal just display of good football, good college football, and two really good teams. So I couldn't be any more excited about it. And again, I can't say it enough how great the BYU folks have been, and we're so excited to be in the same conference with you guys and have the chance to compete with you, and we're just really looking forward to the game.
I wish I could afford to go to the game. I had ideas. Maybe I could take a direct or get to Lubbock and then watch a game. But I don't know if you know this, but tickets are up to now over almost $600 just to get
Yeah,
into the game. I would have loved to gone. This would have been a trip of a lifetime. But it's. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a treat. No matter what happens, let's talk CFP for just a moment. How proud of you are of your alma mater and how they have progressed in a very short time to go from somebody that was middle of the pack just a few years ago to essentially leading the conference and leading the charge into the CFP at the end of this year.
Yeah, we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. We've invested a lot in facilities and NIL. We have a coaching staff. Coach McGuire, who's just a great fit with our culture and has just done an incredible job. This is his fourth year, so really couldn't be more excited just to have been involved in all that and help to build it up to where it was. We were nationally relevant and really good when we had Coach Leach up until about 2010 or 2011,
Sure, you bet.
and
Yeah.
things really blew up, and we had a pretty bad decade in there, and so it's been our goal to get back to that point. We have, and you'll see it, on Saturday, just more passion than just about anybody in our fan base. And Lubbock is a town of about 300,000 people. Most folks don't know it's that big, and it's the biggest thing going on. It's a huge college town in Texas Tech. It absolutely revolves around Texas Tech, and so the community is just electric right now. We already had, I think we had over 2,500 kids last night already
Oh, I
camped
saw
out
that.
to get into the
Intense.
game. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, intense. And so it's and it'll be a really fun. It's what college football is all about. It's about community. It's about excitement. It's about bringing people together for something that's fun and exciting. And so I'm just thrilled to be there and just see what happens. And our goal from the beginning when we started rebuilding was we want to be playing in games in November where we're in the hunt for
Right.
conference championship, that matter. And that's where we are. And, football is a funny sport. There are a lot of things you don't control. And so we'll see what happens in the game, but we are where we wanted to be, where we are relevant and competitive at this point in the season. And so, just couldn't be any happier with where the program is right now and the trajectory that we're on. And this is just beginning. I mean, we're continuing to build and continuing to grow and invest, and so we plan on keeping it up and being a strong member of the Big 12 for years to come.
All right, from a BYU, lifelong 55-year-old BYU fan, I can tell you right now, the Big 12 has been the best experience since I was a little kid and we won a national championship. We could not be happier, and we're super proud to be associated with the Big 12. And playing Texas Tech was one of those goals. And I can just tell you right now from Cougar Nation, you're going to have, you might not sell, I don't know how much blue is going to be in the stands, but there will be a certain representation. And boy, I know for a fact they'll be good. You guys will be good hosts and they'll be good visitors.
Well, we're just thrilled about it. And again, couldn't be happier to be playing you guys. Couldn't be happier to be in the same conference with you. And this is what when you guys came in, this is what we were hoping for. It's like that you got. I mean, you have great history there. Also have very passionate fans, and have been an awesome brand that's elevated the Big 12 for sure. And so we're just thrilled to have you and host you in Lubbock. And I think our fans will be nice for the most part. I apologize for any that misbehaved.
Oh yeah, whatever. We're used to it. We played with Pac-12 schools for
they've been
decades.
some of these kids have been camped out for 4 or 5 days. They may be a little bit
sure.
red-eyed, but anyway, it'll be fun. And I look forward to meeting more of your folks on Saturday and talking to them. And we're happy to host you and glad this game's happening.
So I just want to thank you for doing this interview. I hope you've had fun. I've tried to ask you some questions. Honestly, you did the interview yourself. Your answers are. You should go into politics, Cody. But I really appreciate you spending the time with me this morning. It is morning where we're recording this right now, and just taking the time. I hope we can do this again in the future. I think there's more stuff that anything I can do to help promote your overall mission Anywhere from the NIL coverage to up and through the legislation, I'm here for you. And again, I'm just sorry I won't be able to hit you on the head on Saturday. That would have been a lot of fun. But I wish Texas Tech nothing but goodwill. And boy, let's both make it to the CFP, eh?
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome, right? That's what we're going for. So I bet it's going to be a great game, and looking forward to it. And if anybody, any of the BYU folks, see me, I'll be out at the tailgate. We'll be right over there by the game day setup, and so please come shake my hand, and just look forward to competing with you and get to know you guys better. So I really appreciate the time this morning, and good luck.
Thank you very much. He is Cody
Yes,
Campbell,
sir.
super booster and supporter of college sports, certainly, and Texas Tech coming in the door. So thank you very much, and we will do this again soon.
Sounds good.
All
Take
right,
care.
thanks, Cody. Okay, bye-bye.